Hello there, Lawson for Live and Let's Dice. This is now attempt number 5 of me trying to do this intro in various different ways, with technology failing me, my own rudimentary motor skills failing me, or some combination of the two. So today I am going to be painting the Astrolith SAURUS Bearer, the SAURUS Astrolith Bearer, that was kindly given to us by Games Workshop, so thank you very much for that. It's going to be a rudimentary how I paint these things, and also a little bit of a look into why I paint these things. So grab a friend, grab a loved one, grab your brushes, and come join me at the painting desk. Yeah.
Okay, so what I started off with first here was a watered down purple contrast wash over the softer parts of the lizard. I didn't really have much of an idea of what I was doing at the time, but I thought, right, okay, we'll go with some like a soft paler colour for the soft fleshier parts, but as you see over the course of the video, I clearly sort of winged it in a lot of places. So as workflows go, it's not the most efficient, but you know, just kind of an idea to see how my personal painting process goes. So I always loved Warhammer when I was young, but it wasn't until around 10-12 years ago that I really embraced painting. At the time I was in a very bad spot in my life. I lost someone very close to me in the family, and I didn't handle that loss well. I was incredibly self-destructive while also having a very unstable home life, and this resulted in me having a complete breakdown, unfortunately. But thankfully I managed to get help and treatment from the NHS mental health services, and things were starting to pick up a little bit. So while I was recovering, I stayed inside most of the time beyond attending appointments and occasionally pushing myself to go to the shops to get food. So I started painting, and it was interesting because no matter how much or how little painting I did, depending on my moods or how well I was doing on a day, I could always see tangible progress. And most surprising of all, I was getting better. No matter how much those dark little voices in my head said otherwise, I was improving. Next, what I did was I took a dark purple from Pro Acryl, and then using sort of a medium dry brush, I kind of just gave it a heavy, sort of just a base coat all over the hard scales. Like I said before, really what I could have done was just given the whole thing an all over wash of the pale purple, the watered down contrast, and then done this step, and you know, would have been the same result in the end. But you live and learn, and we'll keep going with that. So I just went around the whole model, picking out the scaly bits. Just took 2 coats just to get into all the nooks and crannies of everything, because I just wanted a nice strong base coat on the purple. So when I felt myself improving more, I pushed myself more. I ended up going down to the GW store to learn how to paint other different ways and different things, and I made friends and people to interact with, and I could always go back to the safety of my own home if things got too much, and I could keep painting, and it would always be a good way for me to center myself if things got too much, or if I ever felt like something was getting on top of me. Okay, now I decided to paint the metallics. I used Vallejo Metal Color Gold. The reason I'm name dropping this specific color is because it's an alcohol based paint. I'd never used it before, but I was very interested to try. Really like the coverage. Not a big fan of the fumes, kind of have me huffing. So if you are to use this yourself, be careful, probably use a respirator just in case if you're sensitive to these kind of things, and have a bit of IP on hand to clean your brush, and probably don't overload your brush like I did. Learn from my mistakes, don't reenact them. But otherwise, it's a very nice gold. Went around the whole model, put in this. Pretty much worked as a single coat gold, which is what I was looking for. Next, I quickly went round with a khaki, like just a nice sort of like a sandy tan colour, just to pick out the ropes, the handle of the weapon, and the handle of the astrolith itself. As you can see here, it was just something nice and quick. There's only a couple of ropes on the model, however I still do manage to miss some, so keep an eye out for my own mistakes there. Now for a bit of fun. This is a burnt sienna oil wash, so it's a bit of oil paint watered down with mineral spirits, white spirits, Sansador, whatever it's called, wherever part of the country or the world that you're from. Use that because it makes the gold look nice and rich, and also as a 2-for-1 I use that oil wash on the ropes, the handles, any claws or bones or anything like that. Just as a all-in-one kind of thing, and I love the richness that it gave to the model's metallics. Okay, now this is the real fun part. I used a white oil wash here, specifically on the scales, because I really like the idea of the Starborn Seraphim, who have, like, you know, coalesced from dream stuff and stardust. So using this white ink, this white oil wash, used it to just dip into the cracks, and you can see it just using the capillary effect there. So I'm going to shut up for a little bit while we see the incredibly satisfying swoosh factor of the oil wash here. Okay, now I had already previously based everything in a dark jade, or just regular jade colour. I wanted to try and match what Mikey did on his Croxagore, so he used dark jade base coat and then quite a heavy dry brush over, and of course obliterating some of the gold detail that I'd already done with a lighter jade. So I went around all the jade bits on the astrolith itself, on the big stone totem thing, and just quite heavy, quite rough and ready, and did that all over the model just to make sure it had a nice coverage. Then a quick wash with Colia green shade all over that jade just to get into the recesses, make the whole thing pop, since this is arguably the largest part of the model. As you can see, I've got the jade all over the gold there, but then I go back and neaten that up. As I said, my workflow wasn't really... I was being experimental, so I just wanted to see what would stick, what would go back, but if you work smarter and not harder like I do, you probably won't make these same mistakes, but if you do, that's absolutely fine as well. Then, a few years in, I met Mikey and we bonded over our mutual love of D&D and all things nerdy, and over time I got him into Warhammer as well, after, you know, he'd done it as when he was young, and we met Jules, we started the channel, and if you told me then that this is what I would be doing now, I would have laughed in your face in quite an unflattering manner, I would say, but I couldn't be happier where I am right now. Okay, now what I'm doing here is giving a heavy dry brush with titanium white. Needed a couple of coats, because it's got pretty good coverage, but I think I still had some leftover jade left in the dry brush, so I didn't clean it properly, so it still has a bit of a jade hue to it, but work it through and it does pretty well. So over the years, painting has just become sort of a second nature method of self-care, way for me to be a bit more mindful, sit on my thoughts and dwell, draw the line under a particularly hard day, and also something I'm very passionate about sharing with other people. Not just because I think Warhammer is cool, it is, but also because I think painting is a really great and very therapeutic way to help ourselves in a world that isn't always geared to help us. So here is some Tesseract Glow, which is a technical paint from GW. Acts as kind of like a contrast paint, or that potentially might be Striking Scorpion. Either or will work in this situation. I just want sort of like a nice acid green, energy, crackle, all sort of things. So I put it on the main body of the energy ball in the middle, the lightning around it, and then kind of tease it up around the stonework itself to give it that kind of glow look to it. So I guess what I'm trying to say in a very roundabout way is that at a time in my life where every fibre of my being was screaming that the world is nothing but drab decay and pointlessness, and what is, what's the reason or need of anything in the world, I found through painting colour, vibrancy, life. And that's something that I have made a pact with myself to try and share with the world, or at least some part of it, even if it's one person, even if it's a friend, a family member, everybody who supports us and supports the channel. I just want to put some colour out there into the world, and maybe you like those colours and you take on some of those colours yourself, and you'll pass those colours on to someone else, or you'll find new colours of your very own. So here what I'm doing is I'm taking pale green, again taking cues from how Mikey did his Jade on his Croxagore, and I'm just sort of picking out a couple little details along some cracks, along some hard edges, just to make sure that that stonework really pops. So any sort of like really sharp corners or any nice straight edges, things like that, as you can see, and then dotting around the cracks just to give it a little bit more definition here, there and everywhere, just so from a distance it'll look a little bit more vibrant, rather than just the two-tone, because I understand that the wash will have darkened down a lot of the detail as is. If you've made it this far through the video, I just want to say a very personal thanks. I wasn't really sure how I was going to do this video. I just knew that I wanted to put a bit more of myself out there in the world, so maybe people can understand why I paint. Maybe that'll help them push themselves to paint as well. Then quickly going around and picking out any other Jade spots as well. So on his blade, the little gem on his chest, he's got like a little bangle on one of the horns on his tail, so I did those as well. Now for some finishing touches. I just try to make it look much like the swampy bases that Mikey does for his Croxagores and for his Seraphon army as a whole. I try to match that a bit, so even though the model itself is very different from his painting style, the basing scheme should always sort of tie an army together wherever possible. So that was nice and simple, but again, however you base your army is up to you. And then final step, using a black Posca marker, I rimmed my base edge. So this is definitely my ultimate work smart not hard tip. Buy yourself a black Posca marker, because it's just black acrylic paint in a pen, and then go around the rims of your base, colouring it in, and there you go, that's all sorted for you. So there's a little tip from me to thee on that one. So here's the finished model in all of his glory. Great thing to paint. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If this is something you want to see more of in the future, let me know in the comments, and thank you again for watching. Please take care of yourselves and each other.